And thanks to Sarah for the invite today. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Orla Nic Suibhne. I'm currently living in Balmullet and I am funded by the Irish Research Council, and our project is looking at the energy transition process in rural areas, how to become a sustainable energy community. So SEAI, are you familiar with SEAI? Yeah. They've just rolled out a new programme at the start of 2016. It was a pilot in 2012. Dundalk were involved. It was quite successful. And so in 2016 they've started again, and I am basically researching from the point of view to make sure that communities are benefiting. It's a community programme, it's a bottom-up, it's grassroots-led, and I'm going to make sure that it's going to stay that way. So the research team is myself, and then it's Dr Lisa Ryan, who's based in UCD. She's on the board of SEAI. She's ex-International Energy Agency. She's brilliant. And then Ruth Buggy, who is actually the SEC Programme Manager. She's my enterprise mentor, just to make sure I don't go too crazy. So just to run through the presentation for today, I'm going to explain what an SEC is. I'm going to run through the 5-step model. And then I'm going to look at the ERIS community and what we've achieved in Balmullet over the past couple of years, because we've run a number of better energy community programmes. We've signed up and committed to the SEC programme. And then just at the end, maybe how to start, or if there's any groups that are ready to go, or if there's anything to start in Clare, because we actually don't have an SEC signed up in Clare yet. So if anybody needs help, if anybody's ready to go, we'll just get you started. So what's a sustainable energy community? Well, it's a community where everybody works together to develop a sustainable energy system for the benefit of the community. So this is achieved through 3 methods. The first is energy efficiency. So whatever you can to be energy efficient, that's always the first remit. Second is renewable energy where feasible and appropriate. The third one then is developing decentralised energy supplies, which is probably the most difficult one. So SEAI are going to sign 3-year partnership agreements with the communities to develop their SECs, and through this, and I'll run through what supports are available, but they're offering technical and financial supports to the communities. So looking at the 5-step model, the first one is to commit. So this is where you develop a community charter and sign a 3-year agreement with SEAI. The second one is identify. So this is looking at your energy consumption patterns and trying to put together an energy map to see what upgrades or what retrofits or what renewables are feasible. The third part is to plan. So based on the energy plan that you put together, to try and put together a programme of activities that can be achieved. The fourth part then is to take action. Now this is the Better Energy Community Programme. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but I'm going to run through it in detail because this is really the important part of the SEC model. So this is where you actually apply for the bigger grants to do your energy retrofitting, and it's a very intense process. So it has to be spent within a year. So generally, like we're doing our energy audits at the moment, our application we put together in January. It'll be submitted to SEAI at the end of January. The letters of offers come out in April, and then there's a crazy couple of months where all of the upgrades are done, PVs installed, whatever renewables you've decided to do, and everything has to be completed by the 31st of October, and then payment happens at stages throughout. So it's a very intense process, but it's a brilliant way of getting money to do the upgrades. There's 50% of the entire project costs are available for communities. And I'll speak to the lovely lady from LEADER here as well, because LEADER will actually co-finance these projects, and we'll ask them later on maybe just to talk about it. So the final part of the model then is to review, is to look at what you've done through your action stage, and then you start the whole process again. You go back, you look at your energy map, you make plans for your next upgrades, your next round of savings, and then the process just keeps going. So looking at the current Sustainable Energy Community Network, there's actually 56 members. We had our first national networking event in Longford yesterday. So at 10 o'clock yesterday morning, 60 of us appeared from around Ireland. There was people from Valentia, myself from Balmullet, Cork, Donegal, everywhere. And at 10 o'clock, Minister Denis Naughton turned up, and also the CEO of SEAI turned up. And it's the most positive, I suppose, action that I've seen. There's huge commitment to community energy programmes at the moment. Denis Naughton is committed, and I'm sure it's going to be a huge success. Once you have that level of commitment from those people, it makes it much easier. So if you look at the map, I don't know if you can see the map because the lights are quite bright, but it's pretty spread out all over the country. But again, there's not one established in Clare yet. So I'm sure there must be networks available, tidy towns, the food programme, like the sustainable energy communities fit really well with existing networks. So we're only looking at energy upgrades and energy savings. So it ties in with all the other environmental stuff that's happening, and it works really well together. So I'm definitely going to try and recruit somebody or to try and get a network together in County Clare. They're all sizes of structures. You define your own community. That's not what SEAI do. Your community could be 10 houses. Your community could be a village. It could be a town. Like they're all shapes and sizes, and it doesn't matter. Anything can happen. So looking at what's available. So the SEC network is those 56 SECs. We meet up a couple of times a year, depending on what region you're in, but we share experiences, and that's the whole idea of it. You learn from what works, what doesn't work. The 3-year partnership then with SEAI, and I'll go through the money in a second. So they provide a community mentor. So those community mentors are now in place. The contracts have been given out, and there's 8 community mentors in place around Ireland. The Energy Master Plan, there's money available to get you started and to do your Energy Master Plan. There's a full panel of technical advisors. We all can't be brilliant at what type of renewable is the best and what type of energy efficiency is the best and how do I insulate my house, do I need a new boiler. So all of those technical people are now in place and they're free of charge. There's loads of funding available. I'll go through the funding now in a second, and just to get those annual work plans together. So what's available? In your first year, your community, once you sign up, once you get your committee in place and you've committed to the SEC network, you're assigned your community mentor, and that community mentor will help you put together what you need to do. So the energy charter, your proposed work plan, your energy master plan, there's up to €25,000 available for each community to get the first year started, to get your mentor in place, and to actually do your energy audit on your community. So at the end of it, you'll have a very good overview of what your community consumes and what the possibilities are to use less energy. And then over the 3 years, the technical advisors then come into place. So they'll look at what energy efficiency upgrades are possible. Do you need a wind turbine? Do you need a whole lot of solar panels? Do you need heat pumps? And they work together very closely with the communities and advise what's appropriate for the communities. So this program is really community-led. And if there's people in the community that are highly opposed to wind turbines, well then you don't put wind turbines in. If they're highly open to the idea of putting solar panels on every roof in the community, well then that's what you do. So it's community-led, community-driven, and that's what's so fantastic about this program. So looking at just the community that I've worked with very closely over the past couple of years in Erris, so we're up there in northwest Mayo, and Belmullet is the main town. There's a population of about 10,000, so there's very few people in a very large area. So if you think about a similar size to Rome, where there's 2.5 million people, we only have 10,000 people up in Erris. It's a very small rural area, and we are part of the Gaeltacht, so Údarás na Gaeltachta has played a very important part in what we've done up there. There's huge natural resource, we've tons of wind. There's never a day in Belmullet where it's not windy. There's plenty of solar, so we've installed 4 solar arrays over the last 3 years, and they're actually producing 10% more than what they should be producing. So there's a huge solar potential. And then seaweed, of course. There's a strong community spirit in Erris. We're in the west coast of Ireland. I'm a Dub, living in Erris. It's not easy, especially when football happens. But there's a really strong community spirit, and they're really starting to put this programme together. So how do we start off? In 2014, Údarás na Gaeltachta were the lead partner on a European project. I was employed as the project coordinator. So we had €3 million to spend, we had 10 European partners, and we were looking at smart grids. So community energy at that stage became very important to me, because just when you start looking at smart grids, you're looking at the wind resource in the west and the population in the east, the problems that it all causes with infrastructure and everything else. So community energy starts becoming quite important in the project. So in 2014, we had 2 people employed full-time, and in the community, resources are generally very, very short. So because we had 2 people employed full-time with the project, it was the perfect time to do our first Better Energy Community Programme, because they are quite intensive. So we did the first one in 2014, and I'll go through in a minute what we did, but just to give you a start off. Then in 2015, the GREAT project was still running, so we also ran our second Better Energy Community project as part of the GREAT project. But Údarás na Gaeltachta at this stage also did a Gaeltacht-wide BEC. So it was far bigger than what our project was in Erris. 5 counties involved, I think it was €750,000, but purely for the Gaeltacht region, so it was fantastic what they did. And also, what Údarás were very progressive in doing, the energy credits that you create as part of the Better Energy Community, they're worth quite a lot of money. So the amount of money that you invest for your energy upgrades, you save X amount of 1,000 kilowatt hours of energy, and they have a value. So Údarás na Gaeltacht actually sold their energy credits to one of the utility companies, and all of that money is put back into a community energy fund, and that funds the community projects for the following year. It's fantastic. So it's a cyclical movement all the time. They do the energy upgrade, they make the savings, they sell the credits and invest it straight back into the communities for next year. So 2016 we had our third Better Energy Community in Erris, the second Better Energy Community for the Gaeltacht. It was a much bigger project again, but we also committed for the SECs. So we signed our 3-year agreement with Údarás, with SEAI. So Údarás are now committed to the 3-year programme with SEAI. So what did we do? In 2014, we had 14 community groups involved. We had a project value of 350,000 with savings of just under 30,000 a year. And some of those measures are, we purchased 2 electric vans for the local Meals on Wheels services. It's kind of crazy having 2 electric vans working in a rural area, but they work, they're still going. We installed 2 7-kilowatt PV arrays. We insulated 10 buildings, we upgraded 9 heating systems, we changed all the lighting up to energy efficiency lighting in 7 buildings, and we installed 28 quantum storage heaters. In 2015 then we involved Western Care. So we've always worked with just community groups. The Better Energy Communities is far more inclusive. So if you're a private business, you can become involved. If you're a public body, you can become involved. But I suppose for the Erris region, because there were so many community parts of it, we only engaged with the community elements. But I'll explain the Better Energy Community Programme a little bit better later on, but it's far more inclusive. So in 2015 we worked very closely with Western Care. Western Care is a fantastic organisation that work with adults with intellectual disabilities. So we did 3 complete retrofits of their buildings. They hadn't been touched since they were built in 1980. We worked with the Irish Wheelchair Association and we installed you can see the PV array there. So we made it wheelchair accessible because the users in the centre were very, very engaged with the whole renewable energy part of it. So it's completely wheelchair accessible and they can go down and have a look, touch and feel it. Solar PV is a very passive technology, so it's nice to go and visit it. So as a result of the savings from that PV alone in the Irish Wheelchair Association, it's enabled them to open for an extra half day a week to provide that service in the community. So that's just an example of what renewables can do on a community level. In 2015, we also retrofitted 6 national schools. And the feedback coming back from the children on those programs was incredible. So if you can educate at that age and show them the importance of saving energy, it's hugely beneficial. We also built a demonstration microgrid in 2015. So we purchased a big 2.5-ton battery. We installed another 11-kilowatt PV array and we installed some storage heaters. And this microgrid is actually an open demonstration site that researchers can log in and use the data. And we're just trying to optimize the system at the moment, that it's self-sufficient. It's not off the grid, it's still grid connected, but it's trying to demonstrate the importance of storage of renewables. In 2016 then, there was 50 domestic houses upgraded. This was not part of our project because we just didn't have enough people on the ground. Upgrading houses is quite intensive. But another group came along, it's Brusna Energy, I don't know if you know them, they're based in Ballina, and they came into Erris and they did huge amount of connection with the community and lots of open days. So 50 houses were upgraded this year. The project was quite big, it was over 400,000, but the savings were 19,000 a year. And if you look back on per house, the savings per house, it's about €380 of energy savings per house per year just for that project alone. So it was absolutely fantastic. So Údarás then did their own in 2015 and 2016. It was much larger. The first project value in 2015 was 685. They involved a lot of commercial organisations as well, the private sector. So the private sector only gets 30% grant aid. Community organisations get 50% grant aid. But the way the Better Energy Communities programme works really well is that there's a lot of negotiation that goes on between the value of the energy credits, the value of how much of a percentage are you going to give to the private organisations. If you give them 25% grant aid, can you take the extra 5% and give it to your community groups? So there's lots of negotiations going on and it's very interesting trying to find a good fit and a good mix, but always the benefit of the community has to come first. So Údarás have been very progressive with their community energy fund. They sell their credits and put it straight back in, and that only funds the community projects for the following year. The private organisations fund themselves. So in 2016, they had 21 community groups. They did a lot with the men's sheds around the Gaeltacht areas last year. And we also put up 2 community turbines in Tirania in Connemara. And they're 100% community owned. One of them is feeding directly into a community creche, and the other is feeding directly into a group water scheme. It's very important to get some sort of community wind turbine projects going because of the amount of opposition that generally tends to go with wind, but projects like this are fantastic. I spoke to Kingspan Wind and told them what I was doing, told them the community benefit and the community elements, and I was negotiating the prices because wind turbines are still excessively expensive and it's a very long payback period, and communities generally can't engage when there's a long payback period. So they gave me 2 half-price turbines. So we got a great relationship going between Kingspan, SEAI and Údarás na Gaeltachta, and because it's been so successful in this year, just finished, I now went back to Kingspan. I asked them, can we continue this fantastic relationship? And they've given me 6 half-price community turbines for next year. So they'll be going ahead, and 100% community owned. So all of the benefit of that local energy resource will be going straight back in for community benefit, which is so important. So how do you start the SEC journey? And we're very keen to get some SECs signed up in County Clare. Any type of community group, you define your own community, be it tidy towns, food-based, anything. You define your own community and have energy as a part of it. Ruth Buggy, who is the SEC program manager in SAI, she is absolutely amazing and she's so committed to this program, and it's really working because of Ruth's commitment. She's amazing. So the first thing to do is contact Ruth, tell her you're interested, you want to join the SEC network, get your community mentor assigned and start the 3-year program. So what does that involve? Well, you sign your community charter, your 3-year partnership agreement, and then you start looking at your community competencies. And this is where your technical advisors will really feed in on what you need to do. Like, do you need help with your partnerships? Do you need help with sustainable transport, smart energy, renewables, energy retrofits, strategic financing? Financing is a huge part of the SEC program because you have to have that mix. When I was telling you about the Better Energy community programs, you have to have that mix of community focus, domestic houses, private organisations, and that financing is quite intense. You really have to get a good mix and a good system going. So there's loads of help. The mentors will really help you with that program. So there's Ruth's contact details if anybody wants them. Following the really successful networking event that we had in Longford yesterday, this program is going to work. It's community led, it's community focused, it's bottom up approach, and SEAI are just feeding in to help everybody. So I'm hoping there's loads of questions from loads of interested SECs.
5 minutes for questions.
Thanks a million.
Thank you, Orla.
The community mentor, is that somebody local that's employed, or are they coming down from somewhere else and working in the community?
Good question. There's 8 of them employed. So if I just go back to the map, they divided their SECs based on the old regional authorities. Remember, there used to be 8 regional authority areas. So our community mentor is actually, so we're in the Western region. Our community mentor is Cormac Walsh. I don't know if you know Cormac Walsh. He's Community Energy Co-ops Ireland. So he's based in Dublin, but he has, I think they're contracted for 28 days a year where they have to come down on site with the communities, and then they're available all the time by phone or by email. But there's 28 contact days. So I think your community mentor, as far as I know now, I could be wrong here, I think it's Xavier Dubasson. Xavier Dubasson, and he's a fantastic reputation, so I think he is the mentor for here. But it doesn't matter where they're from, you're still going to get the same amount of support. So they're available to help you and your community group start the process. And actually just, Pat, you would be a first point of contact for anybody here as well, because the energy agencies work really well with the Better Energy Community Programme. So we would talk to Paul Kenny in the Tipperary Energy Agency, he's brilliant. What's the gentleman named Carlo Kilkenny? Paddy Phelan, he's brilliant again, and they've so much experience and they're willing to share the knowledge and share. And I think once you start the SEC program, if you get one Better Energy community project out of the way, a small one, and just see how it works for the year and then become more ambitious and retrofit more houses the next year, but just start small, have a success, do the upgrade, get the money, and then continue on and get a bit more ambitious in the years. Because we started very small in 2014 and then it's just growing. Like our BEC for 2017 will probably be about 1.5 million in value. So it's just, as you get more confident within the group and within the communities, you're able to grow, and there's so much help available, and there's so much money available now as well, because they've put aside a budget. I think it's 4 million for the SEC program for next year. So there's plenty to go around.
Okay, so question. Was there anyone else?
For those of us who don't want to be supported by Shell, how can you find the money?
Leader is my point, because obviously communities are very short in resources, and 50% of 20,000 or 30,000 is a lot of money to fundraise. So Leader, I think, is Gloria still here? Is Leader able to co-finance 75% of that 50%?
For community applications, 75% is the rate anyway.
Yeah.
For that, yeah.
But
And,
is it already got a grant?
Sorry?
You know, sometimes it says if you've already got a grant, you can't get 75%. You know, can you still?
Yeah,
But
we
we're-
can.
Yeah, we're able, SCAI and Leader are absolutely able to co-finance the
my
project.
business. One last question, Marika. We have to, there's two now. We're going to have another thing on energy, definitely. That's what this day is all about, is catalysing some sort of change. Energy is definitely going to be on the cards. Thank you, Orla. Rory,
No, just in terms of the expansion in solar farm applications, especially here in Clare, it's a big thing.
Huge.
How can communities make into that through this?
There has to be an element of community ownership. I'm not a big fan of developer-led commercial wind farms or commercial solar farms, but if I was negotiating on behalf of a community, I'd be looking for either a 20% share or some sort of community energy fund, as Shell did. They put 7.5 million in for the privilege of living beside them. So there has to be some payback to the community, be it money or ownership, or actually both.
are you politicians? Are you talking to politicians?
Yeah.
You know, this is where we cross over from policy to activism, and when we understand what's going on, that's where we're told what's going on. So it's a quagmire of stuff. Now, I just have to explain that the children want to put on a show. I thought they were coming here, I was going to ask for standing ovation, but they're not. They're going to be outside, so we're just going to have to clap very loudly instead of standing ovation. I want to say thank you very much to Orla.